The security guard looked at me for 3 seconds before pointing toward a narrow door beside the kitchen. Staff entrance is over there. He didn't apologize. He didn't even hesitate. And for a moment I almost laughed, because tonight was my sister's engagement party. A party she had spent months planning. A party where every guest had been carefully chosen, every flower personally approved, and every detail designed to prove that she belonged among people richer and more powerful than us. And now, standing in an old sweatshirt and jeans, I apparently looked exactly like someone who belonged in the kitchen. I could have corrected him. I could have pulled out my identification, called the event manager, or simply told him who I was. Instead, I smiled faintly. Of course. Then I walked through the service door. What the guard didn't know was that the hotel wasn't just hosting my sister's engagement party. It belonged to me. But nobody in that ballroom knew that. Not even my sister. 2 weeks earlier, she had called me with instructions instead of an invitation. Please don't dress too casually, she said. I heard papers moving on her desk. And try to fit in this time. I paused. Fit in. You know what I meant. I did. She wanted me to look successful. Not because she was proud of me. Because she was worried I would embarrass her. Her fiancé's family had money, or at least they wanted everyone to believe they did. They talked about estates, investments, family history and connections. My sister had fallen completely in love with that world. She wanted to become part of it. And somewhere along the way, she had started believing that I was the embarrassing part of her old life. So I agreed to come. I didn't tell her that 3 years earlier, I'd left town and built a company that eventually became the parent company of several properties, including this hotel. I didn't tell my family because I had learned something important. People treat you differently when they know what you own. And I wanted to know how they treated me when they thought I owned nothing. That evening I got my answer. The kitchen was chaos. Chefs shouted orders. Servers rushed past with trays. Someone handed me a stack of napkins without even asking who I was. I took them. Nobody noticed. Upstairs, the ballroom looked like something from a magazine. Crystal lights, white roses, gold decorations. A massive floral arch stood behind the engagement table. And in the center of it all was my sister. She was nervous, beautiful, and completely exhausted. She kept adjusting decorations that were already perfect. No, move that 3 inches. The candles aren't aligned. Why is that table like that? She wasn't enjoying the party. She was performing for it. Then I noticed her future mother-in-law. She stood near the entrance wearing an expression that suggested she had personally purchased the building. She examined everything. The flowers, the tables, the staff, even the champagne. Her husband stood beside her, pretending not to be embarrassed. Their younger son was worse. He spotted me carrying the napkins. He smiled. You working tonight? I looked at him. He pulled a folded bill from his pocket. Bring me another drink when you get a chance. I didn't answer. He laughed. Relax, I'm joking. Then he turned to his friends. Some people take everything personally. I walked away. But I remembered his face. Not because I was angry. Because I had a feeling he would eventually wish he had never said it. A few minutes later, the head chef stormed into the kitchen. The menu has changed again. Everyone groaned. My sister had already changed it twice. Apparently, the groom's mother had decided that some of the food wasn't appropriate. Then something even stranger happened. The event manager rushed into the kitchen. He looked pale. The payment was rejected. Everyone stopped. What payment? The engagement party. The manager swallowed. The account doesn't have enough money. Silence. I slowly put down the glass I was holding. Suddenly, several things made sense. The expensive decorations. The obsession with appearances. The arrogance. The desperation. They weren't wealthy. They were pretending to be wealthy. And my sister was standing in the middle of their performance, completely unaware. Then I noticed something else. A sound technician was talking quietly with the groom's mother. She slipped something into his hand. Cash. My stomach tightened. She pointed toward the microphone. Then toward my sister. The technician nodded. I didn't move. I simply watched. Because whatever she was planning had nothing to do with flowers or champagne. She was planning to humiliate my sister. And she had no idea whose hotel she was standing in. I turned toward the elevator. It was time to stop watching. It was time to find out exactly what they were hiding. And more importantly, why they needed my sister so badly. The elevator doors closed behind me. For the first time that evening, the noise disappeared. No music. No nervous laughter. No clinking champagne glasses. Just silence. I pressed the button for the executive floor. Nobody from my family had ever been there. Nobody from my sister's future in-laws had either. When the doors opened, I stepped into a completely different world. Soft lighting. Quiet hallways. Thick carpets. No chaos. I walked into my private office and locked the door behind me. Then I turned on the security monitors. One screen after another came alive. The ballroom. The kitchen. The service entrance. The sound booth. The private hallways. Everything was recorded. I rewound the footage from earlier that evening. There she was, my sister's future mother-in-law, standing beside the sound technician. I watched carefully. She looked around, then slipped something into his hand. Money. The technician looked nervous. She pointed toward the microphone, then toward my sister. He nodded. My jaw tightened. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She had paid someone to sabotage the event. But why? I opened another file. The hotel's financial report appeared on my screen. The event payment had been rejected. Then I checked the financial information my team had collected about the groom's family. And suddenly everything made sense. Their luxury estate was heavily mortgaged. Several loans were overdue. Creditors were waiting. Investments had collapsed. One property was already facing foreclosure. The family everyone thought was wealthy was drowning in debt. Their expensive clothes were real. Their cars were real. Their mansion was real. But the wealth wasn't. It was an illusion held together by borrowed money and carefully managed appearances. And my sister was part of their plan. They didn't just want her as a daughter-in-law. They needed her. I sat back in my chair. For the first time that night, I felt sorry for my sister. She had spent months trying to impress people who were secretly desperate. She believed she was marrying into a powerful family. In reality, they were looking for someone who could help rescue them. And she had no idea. I picked up the phone. "Get me the general manager." A few seconds later he answered. "Should I stop the event?" "No." He hesitated. "What should I do?" "Nothing yet." I looked at the security footage again. Preserve everything. The payment. Keep the evidence. And the sabotage. Everything. I hung up. This wasn't going to be revenge. It was going to be truth. I took a deep breath and returned downstairs. The elevator opened. The noise hit me immediately. Music, laughter, glasses clinking, people pretending everything was perfect. I grabbed an empty serving tray and walked back into the ballroom. Nobody stopped me. Nobody questioned me. I was still invisible. And that was exactly what I wanted. The groom's younger brother was standing near the bar. He saw me. That same arrogant smile returned to his face. He lifted his glass, then winked. I almost smiled. If he only knew. Across the room, my sister was standing beside her fiancé. She looked nervous. She kept glancing toward his mother, trying to read her expression. The groom's mother stood proudly near the center of the room. She still believed she was in control. She had no idea that every camera in the building had recorded what she had done. Then the ballroom doors opened. The general manager walked inside. He was holding a folder. My sister noticed him. She immediately stepped forward. "Is everything okay?" He didn't answer. He kept walking. Past my sister. Past the groom. Past the groom's parents. Straight toward me. The room became strangely quiet. He stopped in front of me. "Miss Lane." His voice was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. My sister turned around. Her face changed. "What?" The manager looked at me. "The event payment has been returned." The groom's mother stepped forward. "That can't be right." The manager opened the folder. "It was returned this afternoon." "Check again." "We already did." A murmur moved through the ballroom. My sister looked at me. "What's going on?" I slowly placed the serving tray on the table. Then I untied the apron around my waist. I folded it neatly and set it down. For the first time that night, I wasn't pretending to be staff. I looked at my sister, then at her fiancé, then at his family. "It's time you saw what really happened tonight." I pulled out my phones, connected it to the ballroom's AV system. The lights dimmed. The giant screens flickered. And the first security recording appeared. The groom's mother. The sound technician. The cash. The microphone. Her instructions. Nobody spoke. The entire ballroom watched. My sister's face slowly drained of color. She looked at the groom's mother. "Is that you?" The woman didn't answer. The groom stepped forward. "Mom." Still nothing. Then the recording showed the technician placing the device into the sound system. The room erupted in whys. "Purrs. What is that? Did she pay him? Why would she do that?" The groom stared at his mother. "What did you do?" She finally spoke. "This is being taken completely out of context." I shook my head. "No." I changed the screen. Financial records appeared. Mortgage notices. Overdue payments. Debt reports. Foreclosure warnings. The ballroom went silent again. I looked at my sister. "You were never entering the perfect family you thought you were." Her eyes filled with tears. "They're in debt." "Yes." She looked at her fiancé. "Did you know?" He shook his head. "No." His voice cracked. "My parents told me everything was fine." I looked at him. "They lied to you too." The groom's mother suddenly stepped forward. "You have no right to expose private financial information." I remained calm. "These are public records." She froze. I continued. "And there's more." I changed the screen again. The next video appeared. The groom's mother walking into my sister's room. looking around, opening her handbag, searching through her personal belongings. My sister covered her mouth. "What were you looking for?" The woman said nothing. My sister's voice broke. "Why were you going through my things?" Still nothing. Then I stepped forward. The entire ballroom was watching me now. Not the staff member. Not the woman in the sweatshirt. Me. This evening was supposed to celebrate two people starting a life together. I looked at the groom's mother. "But you turned it into a performance." I paused. "You sabotaged the event. You lied about your finances. And you treated my sister like a financial solution." The groom's mother stared at me. Then she whispered, "Who exactly do you think you are?" I looked around the ballroom. Then back at her. "The person who owns this building." Her face went completely still. My sister blinked. "What?" I nodded. "Yes. This hotel belongs to me." Nobody moved. My sister stared at me as if she had never seen me before. And for the first time that night, the people who had treated me like I didn't belong finally understood something. I had never been beneath them. They had simply never bothered to look closely enough to see who was standing in front of them. Part 3, the truth finally comes home. The ballroom was completely silent. Not the comfortable kind of silence. The kind that happens when everyone suddenly realizes they have been standing in the wrong story. My sister stared at me. "You own this hotel." I nodded. She looked around the room. At the chandeliers. The tables. The flowers. The staff. Then back at me. "But why didn't you ever tell me?" I took a slow breath. "Because every time I tried to tell you about my life, you were more interested in how my life looked." Her eyes filled with tears. "That isn't fair." "No," I said softly. "It isn't." She lowered her head. And for a moment, I could see the little girl I grew up with instead of the woman who had spent years trying to impress everyone around her. The groom stepped toward me. "I swear I didn't know about any of this." "I believe you." He looked at his mother. Then at the financial records still displayed behind us. "What are we going to do?" His mother finally exploded. "You're all acting like I'm some criminal." I looked at her calmly. "You paid someone to sabotage an event. You searched through my sister's belongings. You hid the financial condition of your family from your own son. And you tried to make this wedding a solution to your financial problems." She shook her head. "You don't understand." "Maybe not." I paused. "But I understand enough." The general manager stepped forward. "Should I contact security?" I looked at the woman. Then at my sister. I had two choices. I could destroy her publicly, or I could give her one final opportunity to leave with whatever dignity she had left. I chose the second. "Take your family and leave." She stared at me. "That's it." "No." I pointed toward the screen. "The evidence is preserved. If you cooperate and leave peacefully, I won't pursue the matter personally." Her husband immediately grabbed her arm. "Come on." For once she didn't argue. She turned toward the exit. The younger brother followed silently. The same man who had offered me money earlier couldn't even look at me now. But the groom stayed. He looked at my sister. "I am sorry." She shook her head. "You didn't do this. My family did. And I should have known." She reached for his hand. "You know now." He held it tightly. "I don't want their money." She looked at him. "I don't want it either." Then he said something that changed the entire mood of the room. "I want us to start over. No mansion. No family fortune. No pretending. Just them. My sister began to cry. And then she turned toward me. I am sorry. I didn't respond immediately. She stepped closer. For years I treated you like you were embarrassing. I swallowed hard. You weren't embarrassing me, she continued. I was embarrassed by myself. That intense hit harder than anything else that night. She wrapped her arms around me. I hugged her back. And for the first time in years, neither of us was pretending. After everyone left, the ballroom looked completely different. The flowers were still there. The tables were still perfectly arranged. But the illusion was gone. The next morning, my sister came back to the hotel. She wasn't wearing designer clothes. She wasn't carrying an expensive handbag. She looked ordinary, peaceful. She walked into my office. So, she said, where do I start? I smiled. Housekeeping. She laughed. You're serious? Very. She nodded. Okay. And she did it. She spent the next several weeks learning how the hotel actually worked. She talked to cleaners, servers, chefs, receptionists, people she had once walked past without noticing. She began to understand something she had never understood before. The people working behind the scenes weren't beneath her. They were the reason the world she admired looked so perfect. The groom did something similar. He sat down with accountants. He opened every financial document his family had hidden from him. The numbers were brutal. But he faced them. They moved into a small apartment. They stopped buying things to impress people. They cooked simple meals. They made mistakes. They laughed. And slowly my sister became happier. Not richer. Not more important. Just happier. Months later, the groom's family lost their estate. The banks finally came for the properties they had been struggling to protect. The family that once spoke proudly about legacy had to start over. I didn't celebrate. Because by then I had realized something. Watching someone lose everything isn't justice. Watching someone finally understand what actually matters. That's justice. A year later, my sister called me. Are you free tomorrow? Why? I need you to come somewhere. The next afternoon, I arrived at the hotel garden. But this time there were no chandeliers. No giant floral displays. No expensive decorations. Just sunlight. A few chairs. Close friends. And my sister. She was getting married. Again. Not because the first engagement had officially mattered, but because this time the wedding was theirs. She walked toward me. Then she smiled. Do you remember the service entrance? I laughed. How could I forget? She pointed toward it. I came through there this morning. Why? She shrugged. Because I wanted to. Then she looked at me. I finally understand something. What? That I spent years trying to enter rooms that never made me happy. She took my hand. And I forgot that I already belonged somewhere. I smiled. Where? She looked at me. Where I can be myself. The ceremony began. The groom took her hand. There was no performance. No pretending. No family trying to prove their status. Just two people making a promise they intended to keep. And as I watched my sister walk toward her future, I thought about the security guard from that night. He had pointed me toward the service entrance because he thought I didn't belong in the ballroom. But maybe that mistake had given me something valuable. It showed me how quickly people judge someone they believe is beneath them. It showed me who my sister's future family really was. And most importantly, it gave my sister the chance to see me clearly for the first time. I used to think being underestimated was humiliating. Now I see it differently. Being underestimated gives people permission to reveal themselves. They show you how they treat the person they think has nothing to offer. They show you their character before they discover your status. And that is information money can never buy. That night they thought I was a server. They thought I was invisible. They thought I didn't belong. But the truth was simple. I didn't need their approval. I never did. And when the lights finally went out, the guests went home, and the ballroom became quiet again, I realized something even more important. The greatest victory wasn't revealing that I owned the hotel. It wasn't watching the arrogant family walk away. It wasn't proving that they had been wrong about me. The greatest victory was seeing my sister finally stop believing that she had to become someone else to deserve a good life. She didn't need their money. She didn't need their name. She didn't need their approval. She only needed to remember who she was. And maybe that's what happens when people underestimate you. Sometimes they don't make you smaller. Sometimes they give you the perfect opportunity to show the world exactly who you are. And that night, the woman they thought belonged in the kitchen was the one person in the entire ballroom who never needed to prove she belonged anywhere.